Friends, at this time we are going to begin the funeral services for Batya Retsky. If you have a cell phone or a pager, I would ask for you to please take a moment to turn it off or place it in the silent mode. And officiating today's funeral service will be Rabbi Michael Schwab, Rabbi Alex Friedman, and Hazan Jacob Sandler.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בינות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות, על מי מנוחות ינעלני. נפשי ישובב, ישובב, ינחני ומגלי צדק. ינחני ומגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני, לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, אדוני רואי לא אחסר.
Please join me in reading the English to the 23rd Psalm. This is on the second page of our handout. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I continue with the 15th Psalm. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai, mi yagur ba'ohalecha, mi yishkon bechar kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet b'yavavo. Lo ragal al leshono, lo asa levehu ra'a, v'cherpa lo nasa al kiravo. נבזה בעיניו נמאס, ואת אדוני יכבד, נשבר אהבה ולא ימיר, כספו רונת המנשך, ושוחד ענקי לא לקח, עושה אלה לא ימות לעולם. A Psalm of David, do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity. Do what is right. Speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon your tongue. Do no evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates. Accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own. Then shall you stand firm forever. Amen.
There's a quote from the Talmud that I think really describes Batya in many different ways. Ashrei mi shegadal b'Torah, v'amalo b'Torah, v'oseh nachad ruach liyotzro, v'gadal b'shem tov, v'niftar b'shem tov, min ha'olam. Blessed is one who is reared in Torah, who labored in Torah, who pleased our Creator, who lived with a good reputation, and who died with a good name. For me, Batya was somebody who cared so much about Judaism. She was proud of her religious roots, and she continued to teach Torah and Judaism in Israel to the next generation. And she certainly lived with a good reputation, and she'll always have a special place in all of our hearts. There's a poem that was written that I think shares something that we feel about how she was taken from us, but at least she was taken from us in peace. This is my prayer to you, my God. Let not my spirit wither and shrivel in its thirst for you, and lose the dew with which you sprinkled it when I was young. May my heart be open to every broken soul, to every orphan life, to every stumbler wandering unknown and groping in the shadow. Bless my eyes, purify me to see humanity's beauty rise in the world, and the glory of my people in its redeemed land, spreading its fragrance all over the earth. Deepen and broaden my senses to absorb a fresh, green, flowering world, to take from it the secret of blossoming in silence. Grant strength to yield the fine fruits, quintessence of my life, steeped in my very being without expectation or reward. And when my time comes, let me slip into the night, demanding nothing of humanity or of you. Now I'm going to call upon Joel to say some words about his mother.
Thank you for coming today to remember my mother, Batya Retsky. Most of you knew my mom in the U.S., but I would like to tell you my mom's life story from the beginning, because her early life defined her existence in later years. She grew up in an Orthodox family in Abadan, which at that time was Persia. She would often speak of the Sephardic traditions for Shabbat and holidays, which she loved and carried with her to her life in the U.S. She had 7 siblings, and each was assigned a task in the family. My mom served as the family seamstress, but she would hurry to complete the sewing so that she could go to the kitchen and watch her sisters and her mother do the cooking in order to learn how to cook herself. And my mom was a great cook. She had a tremendous respect for her parents and would tell stories describing what her siblings would do to another sibling if they were disrespectful to a parent. Above all, she never complained about her childhood. I think she was very happy with her upbringing, as difficult as it was in Iran. She was very fortunate to have attended a British school in Iran where she learned to speak English and studied nursing. Around the same time, a man appeared in her town, a madrikh sent by the British government in Palestine. This man held secret meetings with the young members of the town to tell them about the imminent formation of the Jewish state. My mother's older sister fell in love with this man, a Jewish immigrant to Palestine who immigrated by himself from Germany in the late 1930s. When the War of Independence broke out in May 1948, he was called back to serve in the newly formed Israeli army. My Aunt Matilda did not want to be without him, so she told my mom and a teenage cousin, Margalit, the daughter of my mom's eldest sister, to come with her to Israel. So the three teenage girls left Iran in November of 1948 to go to Israel. I can only imagine these three teenage girls telling their parents that they wanted to go to a new country in the midst of a war that they only knew about from the stories of a stranger who mysteriously showed up in their town. In addition, my mom was 2 weeks away from graduating nursing school, and she told how the school principal said she was crazy to leave at that time. Somehow, parental permission was granted, and they set out to visit a, quote, sick uncle in Italy who really didn't exist, and then from Italy to Cyprus, and from Cyprus to Israel, where they were immediately sent to Kibbutz Givat Brenner. She truly loved every bit of life on the kibbutz. She would tell stories of working in the fields and gathering in the evening to sing songs. She gave me her kibbutz songbook when my daughter Alyssa was born. This book contained all the songs she sang to my brother and I when we were children. I can still hear her voice singing those songs on long car trips. I love to hear her sing those songs. While in the kibbutz, she re-enrolled in nursing school and completed her training. She became a nurse in the Israeli army, and after the war, she worked at Rambam Hospital in Haifa. Some 30 years later, after I completed medical school, I completed an internship at Rambam, and some of the older staff remembered my mom. In 1959, my father was at a crossroad in his life, dating a non-Jewish woman who wanted to marry him. My uncle described how one weekend my father checked out some books from the library and locked himself in his bedroom with the books and a bottle of whiskey. When he emerged from his bedroom several days later, he announced that he was traveling to Israel to meet a Jewish woman. The book that inspired him was Exodus by Leon Uris, which was just published in 1959. My father planned to study Hebrew on an ulpan in Haifa, so when he arrived in Israel, he traveled to Haifa and then walked into a nightclub on the Carmel to ask directions. The only person there that night who spoke English was my mom. They began talking, then dating, and 6 months later, they were married in Israel. They came to the US, and because my mom did not want to have to work evening and night shifts as a nurse while raising children, she enrolled at Spertus College in Chicago, where she earned a bachelor's degree in Hebrew literature. She then became a teacher at Salmon Schechter Day School for 26 years, a school my brother and I attended. She loved teaching, and most of all, she loved when her students would come up to her and give her a hug when they saw her. My mom's life in the US centered around Judaism, synagogue, and Zionism. She brought her Sephardic traditions into our home and hosted festive Shabbat and holiday dinners, which I loved. Synagogue life was everything to her. And in addition to attending weekly Shabbat services, she participated in many synagogue programs. She was a Zionist to the core and would jump into any discussion to defend Israel from any criticism. We spent the summers in Israel with family approximately every 2 years. She instilled in me the love for Judaism, Jewish traditions, and the love for Israel, which I carry to this day. For the first 20 years of my life, my mom would always say, quote, "When we move back to Israel." But after 20 years, she stopped saying this. I think this is because she finally became content with her life in the US. Many years later, she wanted to buy an apartment in Israel, but unfortunately, this never worked out. My mom loved fishing, sailing, symphony, opera, Shakespeare theater, wine, and travel. And together with my father, she was able to enjoy all of these. I don't think there could have ever been any man more perfect for my mom than my father. They had a great life together. After my father passed, my mom spent even more time here at Bethel, where she truly felt she belonged. She became a regular at Evening Minyan, and even during COVID, she attended nightly on Zoom. My mom loved to come to my house for Shabbat dinners, where she would sit next to my mother-in-law, Bernice. They took comfort with each other's company at our Shabbat table, both widowed, but surrounded by grandchildren. In the last few summers, I would take my mom out to lunch on weekends where we would sit outside, have lunch, and just enjoy being together. I know she looked forward all week long to these lunches, the last of which was this past August on a warm, sunny day with blue skies and green leaves on the trees. I'm so thankful for that day. I will miss those days, and I'll truly miss my mom.
Now I'm going to call up Aaron, Alyssa, and Rachel to say some words about their savta.
Reminiscing over all the amazing times we shared with our savta over the last few days, it's hard to capture the memories with just words. But in an attempt to share just how meaningful they were to us, I'm going to try to describe what it was like to have the greatest savta. A visit to savta's ultimately meant a full stomach. No matter when we showed up, there would be food prepared, or she would get right to work whipping something up for us. One particular specialty of hers was tuna salad and scrambled eggs. We never figured out what the secret was, but she was the best at making them. And after the delicious snack, savta would break out the rummy cube set, and the competition was on. We would play for hours and hours until our parents came to pick us up, and the three of us are still keeping score. But savta's talent in the kitchen stretched way beyond a small lunch. Her Shabbat dinners were no match for some of the finest restaurants, with their Persian recipes that were always so full of flavor. We always wanted her recipes, but she would never write them down, so we were always stuck guessing how to reproduce them. But it wasn't just savta's talents in the kitchen that she shared with us. She attempted to teach us to play the piano and sew, even gifting us each a rug hooking kit with unique designs. Unfortunately, the three of us weren't lucky enough to inherit any of her sewing, music, or singing abilities. One thing we did inherit from her was her love for the state of Israel. Savta's love for Israel wasn't just a passion, it was an integral part of who she was. Without hesitation, she made the journey out there each time to celebrate each of our bar and bat mitzvahs. On each of those trips, we would get to spend more time with her side of the family and learn more about her past and her family culture and traditions. Even when savta would go to Israel without us, or wherever else my grandparents traveled, she would always bring a piece of her trip back with her. Each return home would come with a handful of unique gifts, from keychains to clothing to things we couldn't even identify. She would never come back empty-handed. We even heard she snuck some of those Middle Eastern spices past customs a few times. Now let's talk about savta's persistent method to teach us Hebrew. She was our dedicated Hebrew tutor, so dedicated that she would almost exclusively speak to us in Hebrew and pretend not to understand us when we responded in English. But not only did she try to teach us Hebrew, she tried to teach our friends Hebrew too, as a substitute teacher at Schechter. Everyone at school knew her, and we'd always hear about what happened in class when savta was the sub. While it's tough to say goodbye, the memories we shared, the lessons we learned, and the values she instilled in us will forever be part of our lives. Savta, we miss you so much already, even though we know you'll always be watching over us for the rest of our lives.
What beautiful tributes from a loving family. In this week's Torah portion, our patriarch Jacob returns to the Holy Land from his exile, and he takes his rightful place as a patriarch with his new name given by God, Israel. He thus becomes the namesake of our people, and his life becomes symbolic of the life of the Jewish people, who, though exiled or separated from the land of Israel at times, always return. Well, the biggest return happened during the life of our dearly beloved Batya Retsky, and the establishment of the State of Israel, as you heard and probably already know, had a profound effect on her. As you also heard and probably knew, she grew up in Iran when in 1947 the Zionist movement sent a representative to recruit, and you heard the story. She joined Kibbutz Givat Brenner, and she was a true chalutza, a pioneer, helping to build the fledgling state at a time that's difficult to imagine what it would be like, at least for somebody of my age. For her whole life, she was a true lover of Israel in every sense of the word. The land, the people, the tradition, the religion, she loved it all. In fact, I think Aaron said it best. It was just an integral part of who she was. She was devoted to her family. She was certainly devoted to our synagogue here at Bethel and all things Jewish. And our people lost an incredible community member with her passing. Therefore, it is my sad honor to express my condolences and those of Bethel to Batya's family, to her beloved children, Joel and Batya, as well as Jonathan, to her beloved grandchildren, Rachel, Alyssa, Aaron, Jeremy, and Jacob, and to her cherished sisters, Evelyn Kadosh and Violet Shaked, and to all her dear family and many friends, and to all the community members, some who are here in person, some are on live stream, and some who unfortunately weren't able to be with us today. My hope is that the words we share and the traditions we observe provide some measure of comfort at a difficult time. As was already mentioned, after serving in the Israeli army, Batya became a nurse at Rambam Hospital in Haifa. And as you just heard the story in more detail, she met an idealistic young American Zionist named Sid who was asking for directions. They fell in love, they got married in Israel, and they came back to Chicago. And thus began a long partnership during which they raised 2 children, established themselves as invaluable members of Bethel. And I saw their relationship for many years here, and it was a beautiful symbiotic relationship of love and support. They were very different people, but they were perfect for each other. And it was amazing the way Batya and the entire family supported Sid with great devotion during his final years, some of which was difficult. As you heard, they liked to sail together, fish together, travel together, and socialize together. And as you also heard, Joel shared with me that he credits his mother with instilling such a strong Jewish love of Jewish values in Israel and the understanding of the importance of family and respect for one another. He and Batya said that she was always someone you could count on, and she even sewed most of their clothes by hand when he and his brother were young. Shabbat and holidays were so important to Batya. She was a fantastic cook and insisted that the family always be together for Shabbat and holiday meals. As Batya and the kids reflected to me, Friday nights were always amazing. They were just wonderful, and you all will cherish those memories with her and with your family assembled together. Batya told me that she still has a number of her mother-in-law's recipes, maybe not exactly written down, but she still has them a little bit. And I found it sad, ironic, and meaningful that her Thanksgiving stuffing recipe is one of your favorites, and that Thanksgiving was her final day. As the kids shared, she loved spending time with them. Going to her house was like summer camp, but Jewish summer camp, as she only spoke Hebrew to them. There were lots of games, as you heard, like Rummy Cube, lots of eating, and even skill building, like sewing and playing piano. She had all the activities lined up. She called every Shabbat to wish them a Shabbat Shalom. In our community, Batya was well known for becoming a Schechter Hebrew teacher for 26 years. She got her degree at Spertus and then taught hundreds, if not thousands, of kids about Hebrew and about loving Israel. She even had her caregivers in the last number of years learn a number of Hebrew phrases. The Hebrew teacher never, ever left her. She deserves our gratitude and our respect for helping to educate a couple generations of Jewish youth in our community. But personally, I knew Batya best right here in this room, in the Field Family Sanctuary. This is where she was each and every Shabbat on that side of the sanctuary. This is where she was for each and every holiday. She absolutely loved Bethel, and she loved coming to Shul. And she was a great singer with a lovely and mesmerizing voice. She would often read Torah and Haftarah and the Megillot in her proud, strong, melodic voice, standing on a step stool so you could actually see her over the podium. When I saw that Batya was chanting on the scorecard, as we call it, I knew it was going to be a wonderful service, and I had at least one thing, if not many, to look forward to. And just as she did with her grandchildren, she loved to speak Hebrew with me, and she enjoyed the fact that I could actually speak back to her in Hebrew and understood what she was saying. And I will never forget that she always called me Rabbi, my rabbi. I enjoyed my many conversations at Kiddush with her, some of which were very spirited, and I enjoyed having her as a student in my class, in which she was willing to share her opinions freely. And I loved watching her kvel over my children. She also expected, and I was happy to give her a hug and a kiss each and every Shabbat. She always spoke her mind. She was direct. And if she was upset about something, I certainly knew about it. But I actually never minded. I knew she was always going to be sincere and honest, and it was really good to hear her point of view. I know that I personally will miss her very much. I know the community will miss her as well. And let us therefore say farewell and lihitraot to a devoted lover of Israel, an incredible community member, a dedicated teacher, and a loving mother, savta, and sister. Tihi zichra brucha, may her memory always be for a blessing. And let us all say, Amen. I'm now going to read a few words that Rabbi Kurtz and Bryna sent from Israel. Rabbi Kurtz had a lovely relationship with Batya and with Sid. Rabbi Kurtz wrote, Bryna and I were saddened to hear of Batya's passing. She was my student and our friend. I loved speaking Hebrew to her, and I loved her love for Judaism, Jewish education, Israel, and the Jewish people, which was evident to all. We were present many times at the Retsky Shabbat table. Sid and Batya were always wonderful hosts and very solicitous of our girls when they were young enough to join us. Batya was very pleased when we made Aliyah and was only jealous that she could not join us. We will always remember her fondly. We send condolences to her family, her friends, and the Bethel community. May her memory be for a blessing, and may we share only besorot tovot, good news, with one another in the future. Amen. I'm now going to ask if you would kindly please stand as we recite the memorial prayer in Batya's honor.
El malei rachamim shochein bameromim hametzei menucha nechona תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת בתיה בת אליהו מסודה שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהי מנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר
exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Batya Retsky, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. May she rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. Please be seated.
Friends, this concludes the services here in the sanctuary. The interment and burial service will continue at West Lawn Cemetery in Norwich. For those of you traveling with us to the cemetery and the funeral procession, please do keep the following safety precautions in mind. Please make sure that your bright headlights and your four-way hazard flashes are on at all times. We will be providing cars in the procession with an orange funeral safety sticker for your windshield, and several of the cars in the procession with a magnetic orange flag to be placed on top of your car. Please do travel as close as safety permits to the car in front of you to avoid any gaps in our procession. And for your own safety and security, I would suggest not speaking or texting while driving to the cemetery and the funeral procession. The family will be together at the late Retsky residence at 1688 Green Bay Road, Unit 404 in Highland Park, and they'll be together today from 3 until 5 p.m. and resuming from 6:30 until 9:30 this evening. And Shiva will continue this week, Monday through Thursday, from 6:30 p.m. until 9:30 p.m. each of those evenings. The family has also requested any memorial contributions in Batya's memory to either North Suburban Synagogue Bethel or to the Jewish United Fund. And all of that information, as well as the information regarding Shiva, is available in the service folder that you should have received when you came in. If you do not receive one, we do have those for you as you leave. And for those of you joining us via live stream, that information is available at our website at chicagojewishfunerals.com. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers: Alyssa, Rachel, Jacob, Ira Olaf, and Scott Rubin. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket and the family and the clergy from the sanctuary.
Mariv Minyan in the home will be at 7:30 p.m. each evening.